here we are.
Oh, tells you on YouTube, never and on Zoom, it never used to tell you that. Although, there we go. Yay! Right, let me make sure that's muted. It's okay. Hello, YouTube. I'm here again. You don't see me, and then I'm like a bus. I'm like the buses. You don't see one, and then five come along at the same time. Twice in one day. Here we are. Uh and I actually managed to go like I don't know if I'll be able to hang up like I couldn't last time. But anyway, here we are again. For anybody who is new here, my name's Joanne. This is Ascension Evolution, and this is just where I share my journey through evolution, and share how I can assist people. If you're here, if anybody's here, is there anybody out there? Can you put something in the chat? Because there seems to be the banning of shadowing happening quite heavily. And it's maybe because I haven't been on here doing much. So if anybody comes in, can you just pop in the J? Oh, it's Quitty. Kenny Marie Powell.
Hello, Curry.
Oh, Carrie. I'm speaking like she's Irish, she isn't Tomaz. I don't know why I'm doing that. Anyway, can I also introduce my beautiful brother, Tomaz. Tomaz Muller. Do you like how I
Thank you.
pronounced that? Did you?
Oh, that sounds very sexy.
If you've been here at all through any time, you should absolutely know who my beautiful brother Thomas is. But if not, would you like to introduce yourself? Because I won't do you credit, please.
Thank you, first of all, so much. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. And yes, so who am I? That's a big question. I don't know who I am, to be quite honest. And as the days go by, I know less and less who I
Less
am.
and less.
But yeah, my background is um, Ayurveda. So basically, I have dedicated most of my life diving into the ancient wisdom tradition of the Vedas, in particular Ayurveda, traditional Indian medicine, which looks at health and well-being from an holistic perspective, taking into consideration consciousness, the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual body. Although Ayurveda as such is a very sort of 3D medicine, but I love and I have always been attracted to the subtler aspects of the Vedas, and this is where my journey comes in. I have been meditating pretty much for about, oh my gosh, I'm old, 38 years or something. Um, so, and that journey of going within has taken me on to quite a ride throughout my life. And I don't want to spend much more time um, talking about that because that's not why we are here. So,
He's a superstar. He's my brother. He knows loads of stuff about everything. And Thomas's knowledge. Hi, Emma. Thomas's knowledge. What's the word? You're very humble. Thomas is very humble, and that's it's a beautiful thing. But every time I'm in Thomas's company and he talks about this stuff or he shares stuff, I kind of sit with my mouth open, like so much to learn from you, Thomas. And every time we have a conversation, I learn something different. So thank you, and thank you for being here. So we're gathered here today to talk about a new journey ahead of us, Thomas, and it's going to be called the Dragon Journey Within. And I was live a little bit earlier with our sister Kerry, and explained a little bit. We went into a little bit about this journey, and how I'm really excited about it not just being me that's taking people along this journey and supporting them, that actually we have a whole crew, there's a whole team of people supporting this journey. And I've asked you or suggested um if you would come in and support with something quite specific. And that is Vedic astrology.
Yes.
Now although I'm interested in astrology, I know there's different types of astrology, and obviously, the one that you study is Vedic. I, I'm, I mean, I don't know a lot about it, although it does fascinate me. So, can you describe, um, like what do you know about? Well, not everything you know about Vedic astrology, but what is it, and how can it assist us?
Right. Okay. So mainly, let's just briefly start. What is the difference between Vedic astrology and Western astrology?
That's a
So,
better question.
so the interesting part is the two systems they work. So I always say either you speak Chinese or you speak French, but don't try to mix French with Japanese and Chinese and all. So we are talking about Vedic astrology, and this is where I feel called to. Years ago, I enrolled in a course of Western astrology. I must have been early 20s. I was always interested in astrology, and I just I couldn't resonate with it. It didn't make sense. It was like a language that I couldn't resonate, so I just left it. And then when I did my training in Ayurvedic medicine, we had to look at Vedic astrology from the medical perspective. So that's how I tumbled across Vedic astrology. So what is the main difference? The main difference is the zodiac, the zodiac in itself. Now, the best way to explain this is Vedic astrology looks at the stars and the star system as they are today. So basically, when you look up in the sky, where is the planet? Where is Venus? Where is this? Where is that? So everything is based on what is called the sidereal zodiac, whereas Western astrology um, looks at or basically is based on the tropical zodiac. What is really meant by that is that Western astrology, I think, believe Ptolemaeus was one of the guys who initially delved into astrology about 2000 something years ago. And this very clever man looked up in the sky and observed the heavens over a period of a year and then marked, and that's basically the initial stages of Western astrology. Now,
Okay.
over the course of 2000 and something years, the picture has slightly shifted and changed due to the precession of the Earth, which is basically the tilt of the Earth. So if you imagine, let's say 2000 years ago, Ptolemaeus was standing on the northern hemisphere, northern part of the globe, here somewhere, and then looked up into the heavens and observed the entire zodiac, the entire change of the stellar planets and constellations from that perspective.
Right.
Now, what has happened then since then is that every year, to a slight degree, the angle of this tilt of the Earth is changing. And that's called the precession of the Earth. So
Okay.
that means he might be there on the same spot, but because of the tilt of the Earth changing, rotating in itself, there is a difference
Okay.
between its original calculations and the now calculations.
Okay.
So Vedic astrology takes into consideration the precession of the Earth, which is the tilt of the Earth, and over 2000 years, this is almost an entire sign of difference, and this is where the difference, one of the major differences between Vedic astrology and Western astrology. Also, Vedic astrology is not so much bothered about the sun sign, so where your sun is placed, but it's more about the position of the moon,
Okay.
but then also the ascendant, the rising sign in East at the time of birth, which is of much more importance in Vedic astrology. So this is roughly in a nutshell the difference. Both systems work. I'm not saying one is better than the others.
Right.
That's
Just
very
different.
clear.
Just
It's
different.
different. I can resonate with the Vedic aspect, but I couldn't resonate with the Western understanding of it. So, yeah, any questions?
Hmm. Hmm. No, I don't think so. I find it interesting that one really goes on the sun and one goes on the moon. I find that that's interesting to me.
The sun as a representation of the divine masculine, whereas the moon is a representation of the
Of the
divine
feminine.
feminine.
Yeah.
And also, what I find interesting is that in the Vedas, okay, there is a chap called Professor, I think he's a professor by now, Professor Tony Nader, who actually has discovered that together with the guy I spent over 11 years in an ashram together, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who has discovered that there is a one-to-one relationship between the Vedas and the physiology. And that is fascinating. So basically, what has been discovered is that if you look at the solar system, if you look at the planets in itself, let's just, for the sake of simplicity, take the sun.
Yeah.
Okay? The sun has got certain, it's portrayed in a particular way, like a round circle
Mhm.
with the rays basically emanating from the center, and that's sort of the image of the sun. The
Mhm.
sun, from an astrological perspective, has got the characteristics of being a leader, um, being the masculine energy, rulership, the kingship. All of that is basically um, uh, wrapped around the understanding when it comes to the planet Sun. Now, what this guy has discovered is that there is a one-to-one relationship between the planets and our physiology. So basically, there's a part in our brain which is called corona radiata. And if you look at the anatomical structure of corona radiata, it looks like a sun. There's a nucleus in the center, and there are nerve endings and networks that radiate out. And
Mhm.
guess what? That part of the brain is responsible for our logical thinking, for rulership, leading,
Wow.
taking responsibility. So you can go through all the planetary constellations and actually find in the brain a visual representation of those, like, for example, the
Wow.
moon. The moon in itself, with its waxing and waning phases, is physically represented by the hypothalamus in the brain. So, what does the hypothalamus do? It's the emotional, uh, it's the system in the brain that basically stores our emotions. It regulates our hormones. Here we go. And what does the moon do? Cycles of the water coming and going. So there is a one-to-one relationship between the Vedas as such within our physiology.
That's so
So
cool.
it's quite mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So
Wow. As above, so below, right enough, eh?
yeah, and that makes it so much more fascinating because astrology is not something out there, but
It's
it's something
in
here within us.
ah. And that goes with the tone of the program, right? Because it's all
Exactly.
about within. Because I was talking to Kerry about um I don't believe anybody's coming to save us anymore. And it's okay, like in parts of your journey, to have healers assist you through certain parts of your journey because there's some things that we just can't do ourselves, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
sometimes we don't see things, we don't however, um when it really comes down to it, like if I have a lesson to learn from something and say it's showing up as pain, I can go to somebody and they can help with that pain, but that pain will come back because if it's a lesson, I've asked for it and I have to learn whatever it is that's coming from it.
Yeah.
So there are times during our journey where we can have people help and assist us, but really we have to do it from within.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it it's it's fascinating to me that this is also kind of showing that, you know, we're everything. And there is really no separation between anything. It's just how our human mind is programmed
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
see and believe in the create that
Distance.
yes,
Separation. Yeah.
separation. Yes, thank you,
Yeah.
Tom.
Yeah.
Um, so wow, thank you for sharing that. That's really, really cool.
And then also when I reflect back on my own personal journey with the dragons, it's just incredible of how it's like a silk cocoon. Like you start somewhere and you think, oh, wow, wonderful. I can weave the most magical tapestry with the silk thread, and you have got all the ideas in your head. And then all of a sudden, the thread is gonna form something completely different. The color is different from what you imagine, and it is twisted and turned, and you have to untangle it. Basically, that's been my experience with the journey. But that's the beauty when you work with those energies and the dragon energies. If we are open to hear, see, to feel, to observe, everything will be unraveled in the same way as the silk cocoon unravels itself. And the problem is when we resist, and this is what you say is we have this possibility of journeying within. And as you know, I strongly, strongly believe in the fact that, we have to do the work sooner or later. Um, there are no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts. So, and each time, if I reflect back on my work with the dragons, they came in basically even before I embarked on the dragon journey with you a couple of years ago. But if I reflect back, for me, it's been a very humbling, silent experience that sometimes has erupted into a big volcano where I thought oh yeah, I've dealt with that. That's fine. I don't need to work with this. And that's going to be an easy month working with this dragon energy. And then it just sort of hits you in a positive way. Hey,
Oh, yeah, yeah, but I mean, dragon energy is deep, and that's really what it does is it people use the term deep dive, and we kind of, come across all these things within it and looked at it. I mean, I don't know how many times people talk about the layer of the onion, something will come up and I'm like, oh, I thought I dealt with that, I thought I'd really figured that out. But what
yeah,
the dragon energy does is it really gets to the root,
yeah,
and that can feel quite dark at
yeah,
times, because I'm only going to speak honestly. Um, but what the energy of the dragons does is it provides that safety
yeah,
for you to go into the dark places, to know that you're not alone in those dark places and that you have support.
yeah,
And it allowed me to be able to, it's almost like the deeper I dive, the quicker I got to the other end.
hmm,
So, if I looked at things, kind of at the shallow part, it was going to take me much, much longer. If I just kept doing like a shallow bit and a shallow bit and a shallow bit and a shallow bit, it would take a longer time. Whereas I feel with dragon energy, like it's quick, and it's really helped me when things do come in to deal with things that could have taken me years. Like my dad's death, for example.
hmm,
Um, could have taken me a long time to get over, and because of the dragons and the energy and the support and the I was able to move through that, quickly, like move through the grief process much quicker rather than like just staying in it.
Yeah, and I believe from my own experiences, as you work with the dragon, you have this trust, this comforting, this kind of sense of I'm safe. And if you are safe, or if we are safe, we are able to let go. And that's what happens,
Mm,
I believe, what you have just described.
right.
When you feel safe, you're able to let go and there's no resistance. Whereas we scratch on the surface, we feel like, oh, I like to have a look at that. I will scratch a little bit of that. Oh no, I don't like it. Let's just patch it up again. And it takes you much longer. But like you say, the dragon energy for me is an energy that makes you feel at home, that makes you feel safe. I can only describe it as safe, and it gives you strength. If there's one thing that one, what do you call it, adverb that I would sort of say about the dragons is strength and power.
Power.
But it is that kind of silent power. Well, silent. Sometimes they do roar. It's like you've got everything from. But what I'm trying to say is it is a non-ego driven power
Mm,
that I experience. And the dragons, in fact, help you to scratch off that ego is healthy, a healthy amount of ego we need because otherwise we wouldn't be in here. But there's a lot of constructed ego that gets in the way of our growth and expansion. And I feel the dragons, they very, very quickly show you um, that element of the ego that prevents us from diving deeper, that is that resistance where we hesitate to look at our shadows and we pretend. And that's another thing. The dragons have helped me to be even much more real. I do believe that I have been fairly myself pretty much for the past 5, 6 years. You know, like what you see, that's what you get. And that's what I love about you, Joanne. But I feel the dragons have really, really, really helped me to be even comfortable, much more comfortable in being real and in being me, you know?
and who you are. And Kerry said the same thing, actually, Thomas. We were
Really? I
talking
haven't
about that.
listened to.
Yeah. When we were talking about that this morning, it was like what we were saying, well, what I was saying was, the energy allows me to, like, I was giving an example of where I went into the shop and they're like, how are you today? And I'm actually, well, actually I feel really quite depressed today and I haven't felt depressed for a long time and I'm really down. And they kind of didn't know where to put it, because they're not used to me being like that, but they're also not used to like honesty like
Yes.
that. So
Yes.
there is something that comes, it's like the taking off of the different masks and the different labels that we wear for other people. And it's funny because at the beginning of this, you were saying, I don't really know who I am. And I think what's really meant by that is it's because of all these labels that we've been told who we are or who we should be or what we should act like or how we should behave or
Mm,
what
mm.
something should look like. And what the dragons do is they come in and they just like they almost just kind of whisk it away. Like me and Kelly were saying, like it just leaves you bare. It's
Yes.
just like standing bare naked with,
Yes.
there are no labels. You're left in that energy of kind of nothing and
Yes.
everything, which is so
Yes.
beautiful because you don't need to say who am I is again putting a label on yourself. And
Hmm.
the answer is everything. And the dragons allow us to question um when we're maybe doing things in our life where we're maybe not being completely honest with the people around about us or being honest with ourselves.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
that's a massive thing as well. So it's a really powerful energy, and it's not for the faint. It's not for the faint hearted. This isn't I mean, this is a 30-month program. It's a long time and it's a big commitment. But I can guarantee that nobody's going to be the same person from the beginning as they will in the end. The amount of growth that takes, I mean, particularly within Dragon Calling,
Yeah. Yeah.
the first one that you were in. I mean, just to see. the growth of everybody within that group. And we were also saying how we're all still together and
Yeah.
how we all look after each other. And it really did become like this big, beautiful community and family. And how we support each other,
Yeah.
through growth and through changes.
I think that's um, big, what you call it, takeaway, a big bonus of the whole program. For me, it's that kind of network. Although I personally haven't been sharing as much as others, and I feel okay with that because I am somebody, I don't know why, but when there's some stuff going on, I first need to sit with that myself and I try to figure it out myself. And sometimes that's cancer, coming back to astrology, pulling back into my shell and then sort of mulch a little bit in feeling sorry for myself. And then all of a sudden, oh, okay, it's fine. I'm fine. I'm out the other end. So what I'm trying to say is for people who feel the need to communicate, feel the need to share, to be held, that space
Mm,
has been there and is always there with you, Joanne. It doesn't matter what you do. If you run your silent movement classes, or if you run dragon calling, or in your Patreon group, you always make people feel safe. And another thing also what I realized about the work with the dragon is um, the ability to speak my truth. I think we have said it indirectly, but I want to just say it very clearly to speak my truth
mhm.
and share my truth without this baggage of, oh, what's someone else going to think?
Right.
And I'm not going to be loved. I mean, of course, this stuff comes in, but it's like a little flicker and then there is a hiss of a dragon breath, and then woof, it's gone.
I love how the dragon energy is, because it's interesting when you were talking about, that kind of like silent, dragon energy, how it's really reflective of how we are as our own individual expression. Because that silent power that you felt with the dragon energy is yours, because it's almost like an expression of self as well. And how,
Mm,
because we all deal with things differently, that's the beauty of it. We're all individual. We all see things differently, feel things differently, experience things differently. But I also love that about dragon energy, because they meet you where you are.
mm,
For me, dragon energy has always been quite loud. Fun enough, Thomas.
mhm.
um it's always been quite loud, and particularly when the dragons first came in, they had to be loud with me, or I would never have,
But
I would never have heard them. I would never have. But then, I'm quite a loud person, so it's reflective of the energy meets you at your individual vibration,
mm,
um so that you can so that it resonates with you as your own individual expression as well. And again, this is something that's within us rather than something that's outside of us. So why would it be any different?
mhm, mhm,
It's
mhm.
beautiful. So have you got any Vedic astrology knowledge with regards to the dragon journey within?
Have I? Woohoo!
Ooh.
I was very curious yesterday, and I must be honest with everybody. Okay, now Joanne, just listen this way for a second.
I have my
Joanne
poker face on.
has got the wonderful ability to push buttons without, she just does it. She just does it. And then she messaged me a couple of days ago, how about, because I agreed to be there and I felt honored to be there for the second part of our Dragon experience as a community. I said, yeah, yeah, of course, I would be honored to be there again and to share what I feel I could share. And that was already agreed upon. But then Joanne came a couple of days ago. How about you look at it from the perspective of Vedic astrology? So I saw that message and I went silent. I didn't say anything. And I said to Dan, I can't believe this because Dan has keep pushing me for the last couple of weeks. Just use that you have. And I called Joanne. I said, look, I don't feel um I I I have got this thing where I feel like, oh, am I really able to do this? But anyway, she has pushed the button. I've agreed. So we are looking at it from the perspective of Vedic astrology, which definitely is gonna sort of center me out of my comfort place.
Good.
And when I looked at the chart yesterday, I looked at the horoscope yesterday, which is basically a beautiful geometrical design. Um, I looked at the birth time of the dragon journey within, and just to share a little bit, basically, what came out is that, let me just have a look at my notes. According to Vedic astrology, the ascendant, the rising sign in East
Hmm.
at the time of birth of this course, which is, I believe, the 3rd of February 2025 at 6 p.m. So
Yes.
I used those coordinates to do and draw the chart, and it was the ascendant in the sign of Leo. And you just before we came on live, you said something about Leo. Would you like to share that again?
Yeah. So there isn't anything I believe, please, like correct me if I'm wrong, within astrology that really reflects the dragon. Um, but like when you sent me that last night about Leo, it really resonated because people talk about the dragon heart, and the heart of the dragon, and that energy is probably the most similar energy to that of the dragon heart.
Exactly.
Um, so I loved that that's what came up because it really is reflecting the energy that I feel comes through with dragon energy.
Wow. And the beauty is like in Vedic astrology, so you look at the sign, but
Mhm.
you actually look at where that ascendant rises, and you look at in the constellation of the moon. So there's always the reflection back of the lunar energy, and the moon travels through one sign in a certain particular way, and it basically has got 27 different positions. And in Vedic astrology, you call them nakshatras.
Okay.
So not only, this is where it becomes really beautiful, not only do we have the ascendant in the sign of Leo, but we also have got it in the lunar constellation, which is called Magha, Magha, I believe it's written. And when you translate that from Sanskrit, you look at it, Magha is called the mighty or the magnificent one or the great one, the great one. Okay? It's not being great, it's the great one. And it also, now you look at those positions of the moon, and they have got different characters. So Maga is the great one, the magnificent one, and they have various energies. So basically, its nature is very fierce. Here we go.
Here we go.
The dragon energy is quite forceful, and its power, now this is the power of Maga, the lunar constellation within Leo, is called, it's basically, its power is to leave the body,
Oh.
and its desire is to flourish in the world of the ancestors. So
Ooh.
basically, this sets the scene for me of the depth of this course because we are going within. We are
Mhm.
looking at not just delving within the physical body. When we say go within, I mean going out, basically. Everything is just like, Um, so that was fascinating. an indication that we work with those energies that allow us to go beyond the physical body and dive into the physical body to find the freedom within the subtler levels of our existence by connecting to the ancestors, clearing what needs to be cleared. Because
Mm,
I believe we very much are a product of our ancestors,
right.
and we are a product of our past lives and past life journeys. And there are aspects, and this is where I guess you will have a chat with Emma at some stage as well. Emma's beautiful work will come in probably again. But what I'm saying here is it's so reflective of what the dragons are, what they stand for, their potential, and the indication that it is a journey within. So we are diving within to go without. So diving in to come out rather than going out to come back in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that
Confusing.
no, it's good. I'm just laughing because Kerry's put, my Lord, this is incredible. Peeing my pants with excitement. Can't wait to learn all of this. So honored. I love that. Thank you so much for looking into that. And it is very reflective of um the energy. I was actually lying in bed last night and um, whenever anything comes in, like it's just how it works for me because I never thought there would be another dragon program. Um, and when it comes in, like all of a sudden, I just find myself like I'm bringing it in without even have any thought or any plan or any. It just happens. That's just the way it happens for me, and I'm very grateful. But with anything that I've ever brought in, whenever it's came in, I've always sat and went, okay, well, what's the intention behind this? And I hadn't done that. I hadn't done that with this program because it just feels like it's been very quick, like the time is really, really speeding up. Um, but what I'm feeling now is the reason for that was really because we had to have this conversation to really look at the overall energy that's coming in with that Vedic astrology, which is going to mirror the actual intention and the energy within the intention for the program itself. So thank you very much because that's gonna the everything that you said there is going to assist with setting the intention for the program.
Oh, I feel humbled and thank you. It gives me goosebumps to know that it resonates. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's so cool. And thank you for stepping out your comfort zone, Thomas. Like, you know, um, I believe that it's important to step into discomfort and become comfortable. It's different if there's resistance. Resistance is different from being uncomfortable. Resistance is when like I don't want to do it, and it doesn't feel right. And you hit walls or things don't come in. That's different because I believe that when we actually step into discomfort, that's when things start to flow.
Mm, mm.
And it's learning the difference between,
Yeah.
well, am I just uncomfortable with this or you know am I resistant to it? Is it something that actually I'm not supposed to be doing? um and it takes a lot to step into discomfort. So even though I push the buttons, uh I'm still grateful that you're stepping up and you're stepping into this because it isn't like you don't know this stuff. It's maybe just not something that you've practiced as much as the other things that you practice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know it and it's all there. Um and I love that as well, Thomas, because isn't it good to like have it's good to have all these different feathers in our cap that we can reach into. It stops us getting bored and stuff,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
And what it makes me realize again that just, even one for this was talking about myself, one modality within Ayurveda, it is the science of life.
Mm,
That's the literal translation, the knowledge, the science of life. And it encompasses everything from the architecture to astrology to the consciousness aspect to the physical aspect, diet, lifestyle. So I just, I just being asked here to look at that angle a little bit deeper. And the interesting bit here is, and this is again where the dragons have helped me in the last year or so, wherever I was at a crossroad, didn't know what kind of decision to take. Shall I go right or shall I go left? Being unsure, as soon as you drop into the dragon energy, they will show you the way. They will show you the path. And when I did my initial study in Ayurveda, it was basically a 2 month training course in Spain, a beautiful facility in Spain. That was one of the deeper modules of Ayurveda. And then I had to decide, do I choose to dive further into astrology or do I choose to work with Ayurveda? So I was constantly torn between Ayurveda and Jyotish. Ayurveda, by the way, Jyotish means light, the bringing in of light. Jyoti is light. Um, so I was torn between the two sciences, but when you pushed that button, it made me realize actually it is just one of the same thing. It's just a different angle of what you already have worked with, you know. It's
right.
just giving me an opportunity from where I am right now to look at it from that perspective. And I'm sure there's a dragon for astrology, Vedic astrology, that will assist in working with that if needed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really the
The
dragon is just
star,
a vibration of energy, you know.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but it's almost like, I mean, Thomas, you know all the Ayurvedic stuff back to front, inside out, roundabout, upside down, like from where I am. You maybe you wouldn't say the same thing, but I can say whatever I want. So, from where I am, my, you know, that's my experience with yourself. Um, so it's great to be able to almost have like the full embodiment of it, you know, to allow that to come in and work in a symbiosis with it. You're actually providing these well, what do you call them? Are the charts? Like, can somebody get a I don't know. What do you call it? What would the session? What would it be?
You would say like an Vedic astrology reading where you look at the chart, and I don't, I prefer to look at it with a purpose, with an intention. So I always say to people, if you have a specific question, give me the question. I will look into it from an astrological perspective. And the beauty here is, it's not so much about figuring out what's wrong because we can blame the stars for anything, you know, we can blame
Right.
the cosmos for everything that goes off, but it's about how do we sort of transmute those energies that come in. And as we work with the dragons, as we raise our frequency and vibration, these energies can be transmuted. So people can explore certain questions that they have through a consultation or an astrology reading. And I do take my time to prepare before sharing that story. And also, finally, please allow me to share a funny story that made me the very first time realize that we have the ability to transmute, to change those influences from the stars and their impact upon us. Okay, irrespective if we believe we are living in a simulation and all of that stuff that goes on is irrelevant here. So years ago, when I was still living in the ashram, we were, and I was doing my initial training in Vedic astrology. I had a guy who said, "Oh, my astrologer has told me that for these 3 days the stars are so badly aligned and I'm prone to accidents, so I will stay in my room. I'm not gonna go out, so I will just meditate and be at peace with myself." It's so funny. Um, and yeah, I said, oh yeah, that's wonderful. And then he was living in a room, couple of rooms down the corridor in this big monastery in the ashram. And then I can't remember what I did. And all of a sudden I heard this crack, like, and then I thought, what's going on here? And basically what happened is he stayed in his room and he wanted to escape the energy of the planets. He was meditating and he had this crazy idea that he should do a headstand on the bed, placing his feet against the wall. And then the wood cracked and the bed cracked, and he basically banged his head onto the floor. I said, look, isn't that wonderful? If you would have gone out, you might have just been knocked over by a car. But because you were working with consciousness, raising your frequency, it just ended up like that. So that shows that we are in charge of how much or little we allow those influences to affect our reality.
I mean, it's another tool, it's like me using dragon oracle cards, for example, and when I use them, I'm looking into the energetics
Yeah,
of the situation. And it's never about disempowering anybody. It's all about, like, if you know that something's going to come up, if there's something coming up, then you can have the tools that you need. You can be prepared and ready for what you're stepping into. So when you have that, it can allow you to have the best and highest outcome, because it's much easier to step into something if you know what it is and if you're going into it blind,
yeah.
So
And then
I love
having the tools
that
of how
tool.
to work with it and how to deal with it. And I think that's so important when you take a journey of diving in and exploring our shadows, because so many times I hear from people they have done the most amazing shadow work and then they are being thrown out into the real world and they find it so difficult to integrate the experiences. And with any work, with any of the groups that I am in your circle, you really, really make sure that people feel safe, they are protected. If things bubble to the surface, you hold them in a safe space for this integration to happen. And Joanne, that's so, so beautiful and valuable. And a lot of the times it's not happening in our, let's say, in the ascension community. I don't like to use the word
Um,
spirituality, but here I said it anyway.
yeah. Um, Thank you. I'm going to be open to receive that, because I'm sitting here squirming. Now you're pressing my buttons, Thomas. Now Thomas is pressing the buttons. But it's true. And that's what I love about um there's a lot of people facilitating within the space of the dragon journey within, and none of them would be facilitating if it wasn't the same, right? So I trust a very small amount of people within a ascension metaphysical community, whatever that looks like. And yeah, there's a lot of bullshit out there, and there's a lot of people that are just in it for you know for money. Most people start out well. Most people have the most beautiful intent, but what happens is that um say example, they leave their job and they step into fully being in service. They have to pay their bills. So if they're not fully in trust with actually just showing up and being in their heart and trusting that, as long as they're in that space and they're working with the intent of helping people,
Mhm.
um it can get skewed sometimes, because they have to pay their bills, or sometimes people just, they see vulnerability within the community
Mhm.
and they can play on that as well. um So listen, I'm all about empowering people. I don't want to take anybody's power away from them. I want everybody to stand in their power. And that's why this is about a journey within. This isn't about going, oh, we're going to meet these dragons and they're going to do all the work for us. And that isn't it. That isn't the case. This is about, you know, anybody who's coming on going to be on this journey with us, like, has to buckle up, buckle in, and really be ready to step into facing the stuff that maybe they haven't had the courage or the power or the knowledge or the stability and safety to do so. And what this does is it creates that,
Mhm.
you know, it creates that safety. And I am somebody that has, you know, from somebody that went through an awakening process and thought I was stepping into a spiritual community that was kumbaya and everybody was going to be there and holding my hand and helping me. You know, I've experienced the worst of the worst. So I could learn what not to do. So I'm very grateful for all those experiences. And you know, in any spaces I do hold or that are created or whatever, you know, I do show up for everybody. And listen, I get supported as much as I support other people. You know, I really learned that through Dragon Calling. Like, it isn't about me teaching anyone. It's a big kind of circle or a big community, and it's give and take, you know, the whole way through. So
Hmm.
I'm excited.
Mm.
Thank you so much for coming on board and allowing me to push your button, your Vedic astrology button. um if anybody wants to delve deeper with that, I will put the details in the video description a little bit later on. Um, if you can just send me details of that,
Oh,
Thomas, and then
well, thank you so much.
I'll pop it in the
Th-
description.
Thank you for allowing me to share the space with you. It's always an honor. Thank you.
Oh, I love you. Um, so thank you everybody who is here and watching. Listen, if you are here, I don't normally ask this, but I did ask it before. I'm being banned shadow wise, and if you can just kind of like, comment on this video, and allow the algorithm to pick back up again, because you know, I've been away for a while. Last year wasn't the year for me to be on YouTube, just due to the energies. I came in when I had anything that I really felt like sharing, but
Mm,
I do know that I'm going to be in the space a lot more this year. Um and listen, I know the dragons will get this over to whoever is meant to come and jump on board and be part of it anyway. But I still have to do my bit to ensure that that happens. So if you're here, pop in, please give it a like, share it to any spiritual groups that you're in. If it resonates, you don't have to do anything. But if it resonates with you, just so that the dragons can really get the word out to call the people who are ready to come on board. Thomas, thank you so much for your time today. Your time is the most precious thing I believe that you can ever give anybody. So thank you for being here and sharing
thank you.
yours, and everybody else who is here as well. It's so lovely to be back. I've got so much to share with you guys with regards to the energy of this year, with regards to the split that's happening and the kind of two earths that are present right now. And I know the universe will create the divine time for me to come in live and chat to you all about that. But for now, I'm going to find out how I hang up. So give me a little second.